Good evening and welcome to Hearts of Iron 4, the German Reich Challenge. I recorded this video earlier this evening, and I realized after the fact that I'd left my microphone off. So I'm going to try and explain what I was thinking, what I was doing as I went. At this point, I was recapping the previous fight, the fact that we had liberated Vichy France instead of conquering them. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to look at the rest of Europe. I'm going to look at Hungary and Romania because there's a part of me that would really like to integrate them into the German Empire. Bulgaria is already part of the Axis, so is Italy, so is Vichy France, whoop-de-doo, and so is Greece. I could probably bring in Spain, but they would object to it. And I'm really just waiting for Poland. They're already at war with the Russians, and it's not going to go well. So really we're playing a waiting game at the moment. But I've also noticed that my infantry were not as good as I had hoped. So I'm looking to see if there's anything I can do to improve their quality. But there isn't right now. So what I'm going to have to do, and what I'm considering right now, is numbers. I'm really going to have to fight the war with numbers. Now, you'll see me come back to that later and change my production queue because I know that I can't beat tanks. Not easily. It's difficult for infantry to punch through the armor on the tanks, even when they've got anti-tank guns. So, instead of trying to win the fights with quality, I'm going to have to do the Russian thing and win it with quantity. And pulling the Russian game against the Russians isn't easy. Now I've noticed that I'm having supply problems in Eastern Prussia. So what I'm going to do is look at what my factories are doing. I realize I've got nothing queued up of import. So I'm going to start building ports. And I can never remember quite which one I need. So I figure that out, and then I go in and I queue up a bunch of ports. Not because I need a bunch of ports right now, but because I could in the long run. Then I'm going to check infrastructure. It's doing fine. And I'm going to decide, probably foolishly, but it's already been done, to put in a bunch of radar. Now the radar will give me a bonus when it comes to intelligence in the border territories. And I was really thinking about that for the war with Russia, because I was expecting Russia to conquer all of Poland. But the Poles, as you'll see, are particularly stubborn. And I've got to applaud them for that. Every time I watch the Poles fight the Russians, it ends up getting to a point where the Russians have about half of Poland, and it's stalemates. Sometimes it sits there for a month, sometimes two, sometimes a year. But the Russians just bog down. They're not great on the offensive. Alright. Aircraft is finished. I prioritize building new aircraft. I prioritize building new models of anything, because they tend to be better, and that quality is going to be of value. You can still use your old aircraft. I could still be using those interwar fighters that I had at the beginning of the game. But I don't want to, because they will hurt me. So I gave them all to Spain, which benefited me. And now I've noticed that I saw the notification that Japan had reorganized the nationalist China, and they have now turned them into a puppet, and I'm considering bringing Japan in to the faction. I'm always leery of bringing the Japanese in, especially with America sitting on the other side, because if I have to choose between the two, a powerful Japan or a powerful U.S., I tend to lean towards the powerful U.S. because they've got so much more factory potential. They can outproduce the Japanese any day of the week, and if I've got them on my side, then I don't have to worry about the Japanese. In fact, I could go to war with the Japanese and conquer them as long as I've got the U.S. on my side. I'm making friends with other people in Europe, not because I see much value in it directly, but because I think I can use it as a counterbalance to the Brits. because the British are not likely to just sit idly by while I take over the rest of Europe. Sure, they've lost their main ally on the continent, France, and nobody else on the continent really cares for them, but that doesn't mean that they can't still be a nuisance. I decided I need more factories, and for good reason. I never really have enough production at this point. I should, but I don't have France, because I've got the Vichy France. You'll see me sitting here talking about that in a moment. Though I did get Czechoslovakia, and that does give me something, but if you look over there, it's a pittance compared to France. So I spread those things out. I like to diversify my build so that I'm not waiting on one thing to build before building another. At this point, I'm celebrating the fact that my carrier is out. It's a great day when the German High Seas Fleet has a carrier, especially since the Brits at this point have probably moved most of their fleet to the Pacific, and especially their carrier fleet. I may, depending on what happens, see more British carriers, but at the same time, I could get away with seeing none. When I was looking at the production queue, I noticed how few fighters, or how many fighters I was missing. And now I'm going and I'm actually checking the fighters, and I'm realizing I need a lot more fighters. So I'm going to go into the production, and I'm going to strip away the bombers, because the bombers are already a full kilt. They're producing as... They're already fully loaded. I don't need more right now. I have them in surplus. But I don't have all the fighters I need. So we're going to prioritize fighters, then we're going to queue up other stuff. And right now I'm just sitting and waiting for the Poles to lose. And you can see Russia's pushing in against all of them. The entire border is falling back. And we'll see how long that lasts. The UK declares war on Norway. That just surprises me. And I was sitting there, tempted to bring Norway into the faction and start the war with the UK, but I'm sitting waiting for Poland to fall. My entire plan is based on Poland falling, and I do not want to fight a two-front war, so I'm not going to do it. Instead, I'm just going to sit here and try and be patient and build more fighters. But what do I want to build along with the fighters? Bombers. We need to carry bombers. Which makes sense. I mean, it's the obvious choice. We got to finish off the aircraft. And while we're producing far more carrier aircraft than we need, we are not producing nearly enough fighters. Though the number is dropping pretty quickly. 1.5 per day isn't too bad, but that's still only 45 a month on average. And my industry is just not up to snuff. So, I'm going to go do something about it. And when that logistics company finishes, I'm going to go do something else about it. I love befriending the Netherlands. And I need the anti-Comintern Pact. It serves purposes later on down the line, especially bringing Spain in. Plus, at this point, I'm thinking I'm going to have to start the war with Russia. And I don't want to justify the war directly. I would rather justify it through the anti-Comintern Pact, because that gives me a guaranteed 70 or 140 days versus the 1 to 200 days that it could take to declare it the other way. At the same time, there are secondary bonuses that I get from doing the anti-Comintern Pact, and that will benefit me in the long run. More production. Told you I was going to fix it. And this is where I'm bemoaning the lack of factories because of the French. Sure, I got Czechoslovakia, but it's just not enough. And I still haven't just now noticed that I was running at slow speed. That's why the Russians hadn't advanced. I'm thinking at this point that I'm going to have to do something drastic, and I'm going to have to force the issue with Poland because the Russians just aren't doing the job. And I'm really hoping the Russians will succeed. I'm really hoping they'll push in harder, drive the Poles back, and then once they've got their necks in the noose that is my territory there and my armies there, I'll be able to cut their head off. Or strangle them, since you don't really cut heads off with nooses. But I also realize at this point that I need more troops. And the Japanese have declared war on Russia. The Japanese declaring war on Russia is a very interesting development, because they're going to ask me, as you can see, to join their faction. They're also, at this point, going to draw troops away from the front. And you can already see the fight starting over there. But if the Japanese pull troops away from the front, that means that Poland may not fall. And if Poland doesn't fall, then my entire plan falls apart. So at this point, I'm reevaluating everything. But I'm already stuck doing the Anti-Comintern Pact. So I'm just going to have to ride it out, see what happens, and deal with it. And I can't declare war right now, because I'm stuck going through that very narrow corridor between Poland and Romania. So I don't want to join the Japanese, and I don't want to get them involved in the war. Or I don't want to get involved in their war. But if I do this, and I start the war with Russia, I don't have to declare it immediately. I can instead hold on to it and start the path down to Danzig or war, which will allow me to finish off the Poles and then turn into Russia if I need to. And as a result, I'm moving north to protect Memel and prepare for the war against Lithuania. And now I'm preparing for the war against Poland, which is a great idea until the Russians push forward, and then you will have to laugh at me. Patience. Well, I liked the bonuses that he gave. My feeling was having him boosted up to a 30 was going to be more value than having his bonuses. Because I am still fighting a war of numbers. I have to have numbers. Better anti-tank guns to give me better chance against their armor. War with Russia is done. And now I'm going to start the Eastern claims. And I'm verifying that I don't have a end date on the declaration of war. I don't have to worry about it expiring, which means I don't have to worry about the secondary consequences of having it expire. So I can take my time and do the Danzig or war option. So we'll do that, and we will wait. 140 days, and then we can start stuff. More army, because I need it. Every advantage I can get through those leaders I'm going to take, because I can't rely on just numbers. Sure, that's all I've got, but I can't rely on just that. Now I'm preparing for my war, putting my navy to use, getting them out there where they will do good things, getting my carrier bombers updated. And I'm still surprised that that doesn't have an end date. And now I'm going to react in surprise, because all of my guys just moved off of the border with Poland, which is not at all what I wanted. But because of how I had drawn my lines, that's what I got. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to redo all of my borders, or all of my army deployments. And yeah, I know I could just change that line, but in the past I've had problems with that, and it's just not worth taking the chance. Since I wanted him up to 30, we'll put him up to 30 and we'll get the next guy in. Change our color, make it a nice bright color so that I can see it clearly on the map. And they gave us Memel, which you will see in a moment. So we'll start Danziger War. My army will move forward. Got some more ports, which means I can get my carrier out sooner. And since I've got 3 ports, I can get everything out sooner. Now I need more oil. We'll go to the US for that. And they've got 1,200. 1,200 oil! Man, jealousy. That's all that is pure jealousy. So I'm going to put up more oil. And again, I'm going to go up and I'm going to spread things out. But I want my factories at the top because they are the most important thing right now. I need that production. Alright. We've got a good number of aircraft. Not enough aircraft, but a good number. We might as well improve our doctrines for them. And you can see my anticipation for the Danziger War. Just going through more tech, trying to get everything done. Really just impatiently waiting for this and hoping that things don't go wrong, hoping that my war justification against the Russians doesn't go away and end up biting me in the butt. Because the worst thing that could happen for me right now is if I lost that justification and had to redo it, because that would put me so far behind. Since I dumped those guys early, I'm going to train them up and hope that I can use them. Bulgaria is justifying against Romania. That's not good, but we'll deal with it. I need my infantry doctrines. Those will help my army in the war to come, so I have to have those. My new carrier bomber is ready. And I just realized that I'm producing old guns when I've got the new ones. And I am eventually going to have all of Sweden's tungsten. And if I play my cards right, I'll have it without trading for it, because I'll just conquer the bastards. No offense, Sweden. Alright, I know that this war is coming, and thanks to the Japanese being involved with the Russians don't seem likely to... the U.S. declares war on Chile. The Russians don't seem likely to win against the Poles, especially since the Poles have pushed them back. But as soon as I get in on this, it's over. Only a few more days. There we go. And they refused, which is what I wanted. And I thought I would be able to justify war, but I can't. So, we'll decide our next thing, and we will wait and let it process through, and maybe it will give us our war justification. There we go. Now we're at war with the Poles. Let's get our armies moving. And there we go. Off to the races. Poles really didn't stand much of a chance. They were not in position for a war with me. They should have given me Danzig. That wouldn't have benefited me nearly as much as what happens here, but if they had done it, it would have benefited them, at least a little. So now we just get to enjoy the show as the Poles lose what was left of their country. And this time, I get to play the Russians attacking from the unexpected flank. Ooh, more factories. And I'm just going to queue up everything I need. And get more resources. Which will eventually get taken care of once those oil refineries get finished. My army's doing pretty well against the Poles. Again, I'm trying for the quality of my weapons. So, I'm going to prepare for this war against Russia. I'm going to go for this first river. It kind of makes sense as an initial point. It's a nice forward position. It's not too deep in, and I'm not 100% sure what's going to happen when Poland capitulates, which I'm hoping will happen very soon. At this point in the game, I'm hoping it will happen very soon. Because as soon as they capitulate, I should, there we go, be able to redeploy my troops onto the border. And once I've redeployed onto the border, I should be ready to go. I really wish they would do a better job of telling us how much we could take. Because looking at this, it's really hard to judge how much of a country we can take in each of these passes. So, now I redo my lines and prepare for the war against Russia. So let's set up the fronts that we want our people to drive for. The goal in the north is, of course, to get Moscow and Leningrad, St. Petersburg. The goal in the south is to get the Caucasus and Stalingrad. And now I'm going to move my aircraft around, try and get them in position. I am happy to see that my air groups are up to 100 again. It's a great sign. Now I'm going to order them around so that I am positioned for the strikes into the Russians. As I said before I started this war, before I started my first war, my air power is going to have to make up for my lack of tanks, which means that my aircraft are going to be following me around everywhere I can. So you're going to see me pause a lot in the continuing war to relocate my aircraft forward so that I have them for the battles. Alright. Now I'm going to let my guys get into position. Get the last of these guys out of the queue, and we will put them on the front. And they will weld blue and green together. Alright, so we've got nice solid lines. We're ready to go. Our troops are marshaling. Our aircraft are in position. And the Russians should be moving their troops away from my border. And nothing is happening right now. Okay. So let's start it. And Italy wants to join us. So yeah, we'll take Italy. I don't mind having the Italians sacrificed to the Russian winter. God, it looks good. We're moving ahead. Our forces are already surrounding and cutting off some Russians. Things are going well. Japan wants a non-aggression pact. Manchukuo wants non-aggression. Those are both good. Need more rubber and less oil. We've got more factories. Everything is full up, and we don't need more carrier aircraft. At least I don't think we do, but honestly, we probably could use it. So those are upgrades, so yeah, we're okay without it. So we get more guns. And keep going. The Second Vienna Awards. Yay. Now here, I want to reduce the strength of Romania. I don't want to give Hungary too much power. And this backfires. Romania is now at war with Hungary. But I am not drawn into it yet. At least I think they're at war with Hungary. Now I'm going to try and pull Spain in. But that's where I realized that I wasn't recording my audio, so I stopped and started over. Well, I stopped recording and then I started this. So we will pick up from there at the beginning of the war next time. Until then, have a good night and happy wargaming.